Hey there. Here are review movies, and today's film is Trap. It's a mystery thriller about a father and daughter going to a concert only to find out that it's a trap for a notorious serial killer. Written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, this film stars Josh Hartnett as the father, Cooper, Haley Mills as the FBI director, and Allison Pill as Cooper's wife Rachel. Starting with the positives, this film has a decent mystery to it, a solid cast that works hard in their roles, a clear visual journey, and a great soundtrack. The story is about the father Cooper trying to get himself and his daughter out of the concert before things go sour. It's a slow burn mystery that constantly raises the temperature on things until the climax, where it sets everything on fire and lets it blaze. The killer is an interesting character with a duplicitous nature to him and an unbelievable wit. His ability to think on the fly keeps him out of danger and one step ahead of his pursuers. Watching the cogs churn while he walks around the venue is fascinating. For those expecting a bloody mess, you will be disappointed. It's more like a chess match between the police and the killer. As they move around the venue, closing off access to different exits, the killer changes up their tactics and finds new ways of escaping. The story does a great job of keeping the killer's fate in question. He's so slippery that it almost seems impossible for the police to catch him, but they also have him trapped so well that it almost seems absurd that he could escape. The general cast does a good job of their roles, although there isn't much for them to do. There's a few side characters like the daughter, an employee at one of the stands, and another mother at the concert, but most of the screen time falls on the shoulders of Josh Hartnett. The two big exceptions were Jonathan Langdon, who played Jamie the employee, and Kid Cudi, who played the thinker. Langdon plays an exposition character and is so entertaining and wholesome that he ends up bringing a few laughs with his performance. Kid Cudi shows up later in the film and only for a scene or two, but shines with the few seconds they give him. He plays a sassy diva pop star who spits ridiculous one-liners, and he nails every single one. In the main role, Hartnett plays a good father and a nice person outwardly. Underneath the surface, he hides a dark secret. He spends the movie trying to find a way out while the police track the killer, and goes through a roller coaster of emotions in the process. His character feels like a shell at times, but toward the end, he blends together all the different bits and pieces and creates something new and shocking. The visual journey takes place at a concert hall and spends most of its time there. The scenery is a bit dark, so there's a heavy amount of contrast going on, but it tends to be clear and easy to follow. Throughout the film, we get little bits of concert footage from Lady Raven and a lot of footage of Cooper running around the venue looking for a way out. The sheer number of extras involved is impressive at times, but otherwise it's just a normal-looking concert with a bit of pyrotechnics and a lot of cops. The soundtrack is supplied entirely by Lady Raven, or Sleka, which is pretty neat. Created for the film, the soundtrack comes with a hip-hop meets R&B kind of sound and closely follows the story. It's entertaining, matches really well with scenery at different points, and they even managed to include a few on-stage performances and work them into the story. It was a bit far-fetched, but the performances were good and the music was a lot of fun. On the negative side of things, the story is not only far-fetched, it has giant gaping holes in it that I can't ignore. The cops in this movie are not only exceptionally bad at their jobs, the killer is a little bit invisible at times when he shouldn't be, and the story takes a twist that makes no sense. Starting with the cops, they manage to let the killer slip through their grasps constantly, and it's always because they're too easy to fool. They accept the worst excuses and don't double-check anyone. They also give the killer every concession they ask for, which often leads to their own downfall. The killer is also seemingly invisible at certain moments when there's no logical reason for them to be. The film suggests that this incredibly tall, handsome person is just sliding past everyone's gaze in moments of confusion, but they're the kind of person who would stand out everywhere they go on appearance alone. The kind of things they do are also fairly obvious, like trying to slip out of a car surrounded by a crowd. It's pretty much impossible to even open the door without someone noticing, but this killer gets out and blends into the crowd like it's nothing. The real problem, though, is the twist. It's hard to talk about without spoiling, so I'll just say that they didn't set it up well, and there's a big logical gap between what happened and how the events played out. Basically, it doesn't make any sense how the cops got onto the killer in the first place. There's a huge leap between what they were given and where they end up in the case, and the film doesn't even attempt to explain it. Finally, the film lacks big visual moments. It's a thriller about a serial killer being caught in a trap, so I expected there to be at least a few kills or violent moments. The film has them, but they're so short and insignificant that it's easy to mentally skip over them. They always involve extras, and they never actually focus on the violence. It ends up feeling almost clinical in how it's presented and ultimately takes away from the killer's overall vibe. The story tells us that he's a very sadistic person, but the film doesn't show it. Personally, I thought Trap was a well-made film with an interesting story. It does have its problems that you have to ignore if you want to enjoy it, but it has some good tension. Josh Hartnett does a great job, and the music was surprisingly good. It's not really trying anything new, but it is entertaining. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye!